Hello everyone, I am Nancy Shaunak. I am a legal intern at Lexis and Company. I am pursuing my BLLB from Maharishi Dayanand University, Center for Professional and Allied Studies, Gurugram. I am currently in my 5th semester. I am glad to have this opportunity presenting before you the video. So, the topic for my video is the stamp duty payable on a contract. The purpose of me choosing this topic is that I wanted to give practical knowledge about how and when the contract is legally binding, because stamp duty is the thing by which a contract is legally binding in the court of law. So, let's begin with our introduction. The economy of every country is based on agreements and contracts in which what is a contract? A contract is one in which two parties come and agrees on certain expressed and terms and conditions which are laid down, which when they signed by both the parties involved becomes binding. Agreements, being the soul and heart of businesses, need to be enforceable by law. They will be enforceable by law if they satisfy the provision mentioned under the Indian Stamp Act in 1899 and read with the Registration Act 1908. Therefore, there should be duly stamped for being valid in the eyes of law. According to the Indian Stamp Act 1889, stamp duty must be paid in order to record and keep track of all the transactions. Thus, stamp duty is like proof that the deal has been taken between both the parties. It is a legal entity that is valid as evidence in case of disputes in a court of law. In 2016, the amendment for the Indian Stamp Act came in the form of the Recovery of Debt Laws Bill 2016. Now let's see what is a stamp duty. Stamp duty means an additional charge levied on certain legal documents by purchasing a stamp to be placed on said document. Mere physical transfer of the property is not valid in the eyes of law. In order to make such a transfer valid, the buyer has to pay stamp duty, which will act as a proof that the purchase have occurred. Therefore, stamp duty is a government tax paid at the time of the transfer of property, which makes the transfer certificate valid in the court of law. Though the rate of stamp duty varies from state to state, the general underlying principle behind the duty remains the same. Now let's see what are the laws made relating to the stamp and registration of it. Stamp duty in India is governed by two legislation, which are 1. The stamp duty legislated by the Parliament, and Stamp Act legislated by the state legislature. According to Article 246, read with Schedule 7 of the Indian Constitution, Parliament can enact laws relating to rates of stamp duty of bill of exchange, checks, promissory notes, letters of credits, policies of insurance, transfer of shares, debentures, proxies and receipts, whereas state legislature can legislate on all those matters which are not mentioned above. Now let's see section 3 of the Parliament legislation. Stamp duty can be imposed on the following documents. First, all the documents mentioned in the first schedule of the Parliament legislation, every bill of exchange payable otherwise on demand or promissory note drawn or made out of India and accepted or paid or presented for acceptance or payment or endorsed, transferred or otherwise negotiated, and all instruments mentioned in first schedule which have not been previously executed by any person are executed out of India related to any property or to any matter or thing which has been done in India is received in India. Now let's see section 3 of the Indian Stamp Act 1899. Stamp duty will not be imposed on the following documents. First, any instrument which is performed by or on behalf of the government in cases, but for this exemption, the duty chargeable in respect of such instrument will be paid by the government. Second, any instrument for the purpose of sale, transfer or other disposition, either absolutely or by way or mortgage or otherwise, of any ship or vessel registered under the Merchant Shipping Act 1894. And thirdly, any instrument which is executed by or on behalf of the developer or unit or connection with the carrying out of purpose of the special economic zone. Now, let's see section 3 of the state legislation. Stamp duty will not be imposed on the following documents, which are any instrument which is performed by or on behalf of the government in cases where, but for this exemption, the duty chargeable in respect of such instrument is paid by the government itself. An instrument for sale, transfer or other disposition, either absolutely or by way of mortgage, or any ship or vessel which is duly registered under the Merchant Shipping Act 1958. Now let's see some of the main points which need to be remembered regarding the stamp duty. Stamp duty is valid for 6 months only. Secondly, whenever on foreign documents stamp duty is paid, it is valid just for 3 months. Thirdly, unless stamp duty is paid, the agreement will not be enforceable in any court of law. Non-payment of the required stamp duty is a criminal offence as per the Indian Penal Code. Delay in payment of stamp duty can make the individual liable to pay a fine ranging from 2% to 200% of the total payable amount. The stamp duty is to be made by the purchaser or buyer and not the seller. Now let's see what are the penalties regarding the non-compliance of the stamp duty. Both the Parliament and state legislature provide that an unstamped or inadequately stamped documents will not be enforceable in a court of law as an evidence. The following provisions highlight the effect of an inadequately stamped documents. First, the section 33 of state legislature and 33 of the Parliament legislature provides that if it came into notice of an authorized person that an instrument or agreement is inadequately stamped, then such authorized person can take in custody such agreement or instrument. Section 34 of the state legislature and section 35 of the Parliament legislature provides that an inadequately stamped instrument or agreement is not enforceable in any court of law as evidence, and such instrument or agreement is subject to certain exceptions as mentioned under the section. Section 35 of the state legislature and section 36 of the Parliament legislature provides that if an inadequately stamped instrument or agreement is recorded as evidence, it will not be enforceable in any court of law unless the legislature thinks that such an instrument bears sufficient stamp and permit enforceability of such instrument on payment of such charge as deems fit. Now let's see what are the implications relating to e-agreement. Now firstly, what is e-agreement? E-agreement is the electronic agreement which are made by the computer or on social media. Now under this Indian Stamp Act, there is no provisions that deals with electronic agreements or stamp duty payable on such agreements. Most of the stamp duty stamp legislation does not have any provisions related to electronic records except some like in Maharashtra. The Maharashtra Stamp Act 1958 mentions electronic records and the definition of instrument. States like Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, Karnataka, Gujarat and Rajasthan mention electronic records within the definition of term instrument, thus imposing stamp duties on electronic records. Now let's see what is the liability of paying stamp duty. Liability can be imposed by agreement on either the parties of the agreement for payment of the stamp duty. Section 29 of the Parliament legislation provides the power to the parties of agreement to decide who among the parties of the agreement shall be liable to pay the stamp duty imposed on the concerned agreement, which in absence of an agreement imposes on certain person the liability of paying stamp duty. Similarly, in section 30 of the state legislature provides a choice to the parties of the agreement to decide who among the parties of the agreement shall be liable to pay the stamp duty imposed on the concerned agreement, and which in absence of any such agreement imposes upon a particular party the liability for paying stamp duty. It is logical to pass the burden of paying the stamp duty on the party who is paying the consideration under the agreement, as stamp duty is the cost of the subject matter of the agreement. Now, let's conclude to our topic. Stamp duty is payable to the state government for recognizing an agreement by the parties to an agreement. It is the revenue for the state government, even if it is levied by the central government, and if any agreement is inadequately stamped, the state government has the power to impound or nullify the effect of such an agreement. Thank you so much.